A simple woman kicked out of car dealership. Next day, her billionaire husband's Rolls-Royce arrived. Clara Vance, at 56, possessed a quiet grace that often went unnoticed in the bustling, tech-driven world of Austin, Texas. Her silver-streaked brown hair was usually pulled back in a simple knot, practical for her passions, coaxing life from the rich soil of her expansive garden and meticulously restoring antique quilts. She favored comfortable, well-worn cardigans and sensible shoes, attire that spoke more of her gentle, introverted nature than the staggering wealth she was technically part of. 25 years ago, she had married Julian Vance, then a brilliant but struggling software engineer with boundless dreams and empty pockets. Clara, then a community college art history instructor, had believed in him fiercely, her steady presence and practical support a ballast to his volatile genius. Now, Julian was the founder and CEO of Apex Innovations, a global tech behemoth born from algorithms he'd sketched on diner napkins while Clara worked double shifts. Their life had transformed financially beyond imagination, yet Clara remained fundamentally unchanged. She navigated their sprawling, tasteful hill country estate with the same unassuming air she'd had in their tiny newlywed apartment. While Julian engaged with global markets and technological frontiers, Clara found fulfillment in volunteering at the local library's literacy program, tending her award-winning roses and cherishing unhurried afternoons with their two young grandchildren, Leo and Maya. She consciously avoided the glare of the socialite scene, finding the intricate politics and performative nature of extreme wealth exhausting. Her anonymity was a cherished shield, allowing her to move through the world on her own terms, connected to the simple rhythms of life that truly mattered to her. Julian, though immersed in his demanding world, understood and fiercely protected her preference for privacy, recognizing her quiet authenticity as the anchor of his own life. Their bond was a silent testament to a partnership forged long before Apex Innovations became a household name, a connection rooted in shared history and mutual respect that transcended the billions in their bank accounts. It was a Tuesday morning, the Texas sun already warming the limestone pathways of her garden, promising a day like any other. The day took an unexpected turn when Clara's beloved, decade-old Subaru Forester, affectionately nicknamed the Green Bean, finally sputtered its last breath on the way back from her library volunteering session. It wasn't dramatic, just a quiet surrender of the engine on a busy Austin street. Stranded for a bit before roadside assistance arrived, Clara realized the inevitable. She needed a new car. Not something flashy, just reliable and safe. Practicality was her watchword. She needed space for gardening supplies, car seats for Leo and Maya, and the ability to navigate Austin traffic without worry. Her mind turned to certified pre-owned (CPO) vehicles. The warranty and rigorous checks appealed to her sensible nature. As the tow truck hauled the Green Bean away, Clara found herself near Prestige Motors of Austin, a gleaming dealership known for its high-end European imports Mercedes, BMW, and even a few Rolls-Royces glinting under the showroom lights. She knew it wasn't quite her usual territory, but remembered they also had a substantial CPO section, often featuring well-maintained trade-ins. Dressed in her volunteering attire, comfortable jeans, a faded university sweatshirt, and sturdy walking shoes, perhaps with a smudge of dirt from kneeling beside a bookshelf earlier, she hesitated only slightly before pushing open the heavy glass door. The cool, hushed air of the showroom felt instantly different from the warm bustle outside. Marble floors reflected the recessed lighting, and the scent of expensive leather hung in the air. Clara bypassed the gleaming new models, heading towards a sign indicating certified pre-owned. She spotted a likely candidate, a silver Lexus ES 350 CPO from a few years back, sensible, safe, reliable. She peered through the window, checking the mileage sticker. That's when Mark Jenkins approached. Mark was in his late 30s, impeccably dressed in a suit that screamed ambition, his smile practiced and predatory. He sized Clara up in a fraction of a second, his internal calculus instantly dismissing her as a waste of his valuable time. His commission came from moving new metal, preferably the six-figure kind, not dealing with what he perceived as a budget-conscious browser in the CPO lot. "Can I help you find the bus stop?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescending charm, a smirk playing on his lips. Clara, though taken aback by his rudeness, replied evenly, "No, thank you. I was just looking at this Lexus. Could you tell me about its service history?" Mark stepped deliberately between her and the car, blocking her view. "Ma'am, perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of the used car lots down on Highway 71? They have vehicles more suited to certain budgets." His implication was clear and insulting. "I assure you," Clara said, her voice quiet but firm, flushing slightly, "I'm interested in this vehicle. I understand the CPO program, and I have a budget for a reliable car." Mark scoffed audibly, rolling his eyes. "Look, lady, I don't have time for tire kickers. This is a high-end dealership. The mirrors on these cars cost more than you probably make. Why don't you just move along?" He didn't physically touch her, but his aggressive posture and dismissive wave towards the door felt like a shove. He turned. Humiliation washed over Clara, hot and sharp. It wasn't about the car or even Mark's assumption about her finances. It was the utter lack of basic human respect, the casual cruelty of his judgment based solely on her unassuming appearance. Tears pricked her eyes, but she refused to let them fall in front of him. Head held high, clutching her worn canvas tote bag, she walked out of the dealership, the automatic doors hissing shut behind her like a final insult. The Austin sun suddenly felt harsh, the city noise grating. She felt diminished, unseen. Clara drove home in the loaner car provided by the auto shop, the temporary vehicle feeling alien and sterile compared to the familiar comfort of the green bean. The encounter at Prestige Motors replayed in her mind, each dismissive word, each condescending glance, reigniting the sting of humiliation. She usually found solace in her garden, the familiar rhythm of weeding and pruning calming her spirit. But today, even the vibrant blooms seemed muted, unable to distract from the lingering unease. She tried to brush it off. It was just one rude person on a bad day. While it affected her so deeply, yet the feeling persisted, a cold knot in her stomach. It wasn't just rudeness. It was a judgment on her worth, a dismissal of her personhood based on the superficiality of her clothing. Julian arrived home later than usual, his mind still buzzing from a complex negotiation call with the Tokyo office. He found Clara sitting quietly in the library, a half-finished cup of tea cold beside her, an antique quilt spread across her lap, but her hands still. He knew her moods intimately. The forced serenity in her posture was a clear signal that something was wrong. "Rough day, sweetheart?" he asked gently, loosening his tie as he sat beside her. Clara managed a small smile. "Just tired." The green bean finally gave up the ghost. She explained the car trouble, keeping her tone light. But Julian saw the faint redness around her eyes, the subtle tension in her shoulders. "That's not all, is it?" he probed softly. "What happened?" Clara hesitated. She hated bothering Julian with such things. His world was filled with high-stakes decisions and global pressures. Making a fuss about a rude salesman felt trivial in comparison. "It's nothing, really. Just an unpleasant encounter while I was looking for a replacement." "Where?" Julian pressed, his focus sharpening. "Prestige Motors," she admitted reluctantly. And then, The story spilled out, not in anger, but with a quiet sadness that conveyed the depth of her hurt. She described Mark Jenkins's sneering remarks, his assumptions about her finances, the way he'd physically blocked her from the car and essentially told her she didn't belong. "He made me feel invisible," she finished, her voice barely a whisper. "Like I wasn't even worth a moment of basic courtesy because I didn't look like I had money." Julian listened, his expression growing colder, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by a focused intensity. He reached out, taking her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. He saw not just the momentary hurt, but the violation of the respect he knew she inherently deserved, the respect she showed everyone else, regardless of their station. The salesman hadn't just insulted Clara. He had insulted the very core of her character, the quiet dignity Julian cherished. "What was his name?" Julian asked, his voice dangerously calm. Clara described Mark Jenkins. Julian nodded slowly. "This," he said, his eyes meeting hers, "will not stand. Nobody treats my wife that way." The protectiveness radiating from him was fierce, absolute. He wasn't just a billionaire defending his spouse. He was a husband seeing the woman he loved deeply wounded by casual cruelty. Julian Vance wasn't a man prone to impulsive displays of anger, but the calculated disrespect shown to Clara ignited a cold, deliberate resolve within him. This wasn't about wounded pride. It was about principle. It was about ensuring that the woman who formed the bedrock of his life was treated with the dignity she deserved, a dignity entirely independent of their financial status. A simple phone call to the dealership manager expressing displeasure felt inadequate. An anonymous complaint could be easily dismissed or buried. No, this required a statement, a tangible lesson in the consequences of prejudice. His decision formed quickly, decisively. He wouldn't just rectify the situation. He would orchestrate an event that Mark Jenkins, and perhaps the entire dealership culture, would never forget. He spent the evening comforting Clara, reassuring her that her feelings were valid and her experience unacceptable. He didn't immediately reveal the specifics of his plan, knowing she disliked confrontation and ostentatious displays. He simply told her, "Tomorrow morning, we're going back there. Together. I need you with me." He saw the hesitation in her eyes, but also the trust. He then made 2 quiet phone calls. The first was to his executive assistant, tasking her with discreetly identifying the primary owner of the Prestige Motors franchise group, not just the local manager. He needed leverage at the highest level. The second call was to his security detail and fleet manager. "Have the Phantom ready for me at 9 a.m. tomorrow," he instructed. "Pearl white. Detailed." The Rolls-Royce Phantom, a vehicle synonymous with ultimate luxury, was rarely used by Julian, who typically preferred a more understated Tesla or his customized Rivian truck. But for this occasion, its symbolism was perfect. It was a visible manifestation of the power Mark Jenkins had so arrogantly failed to perceive. The next morning, Julian gently encouraged Clara to wear something she felt comfortable yet confident in. She chose a simple but elegant navy blue cashmere sweater set, tailored slacks, and low heels clothes that reflected her taste, but also subtly conveyed a status far removed from the previous day's gardening attire. As they prepared to leave, Julian felt a surge of protective energy. He was doing this for Clara, to erase the stain of yesterday's humiliation, to reaffirm her worth in a way that the perpetrator couldn't ignore. Meanwhile, across town at Prestige Motors, Mark Jenkins arrived for his shift, feeling smug. He'd likely already bragged to a junior colleague about efficiently handling the looky-loo from the CPO section the day before, reinforcing his self-perceived image as a gatekeeper of luxury, able to spot real buyers instantly. He checked his reflection in the showroom window, adjusted his tie, completely oblivious to the storm gathering on his horizon. The consequences of his dismissive attitude were already in motion, orchestrated by a man whose influence stretched far beyond the gleaming confines of the dealership. Julian's mind was clear. Mark Jenkins's career at Prestige Motors was over. The only question was how publicly and consequentially it would end. He intended the lesson to resonate. Respect wasn't a privilege reserved for the visibly wealthy. It was a fundamental right. The purchase of a car was secondary. The primary objective was the restoration of Clara's dignity and a powerful rebuke to casual prejudice. While Mark Jenkins embodied the aggressive, commission-driven sales culture sometimes prevalent in high-pressure environments, not everyone at Prestige Motors shared his approach. Ben Carter, a recent college graduate barely 6 months into his trainee salesman position, represented a different ethos. Young, earnest, and slightly overwhelmed by the opulence around him, Ben genuinely believed in the importance of treating every visitor with courtesy, whether they arrived in a battered pickup or a brand-new Porsche. He'd absorbed the official training manuals about customer experience, but more importantly, it aligned with his own inherently polite nature. Early, they were upfront about not being in a position to buy anytime soon, perhaps ever. Mark had shot Ben a derisive look from across the showroom, muttering something about wasting time on grandparents. But Ben ignored him, fetching the cup of water, answering their questions about charging infrastructure with genuine enthusiasm, and thanking them sincerely for stopping by. He saw them not as commission opportunities, but as people engaging with the brand and deserving of a positive interaction. This quiet diligence often put Ben at odds with a more seasoned, cynical salesman like Mark, who prioritized quick closes and high-value targets. The dealership manager, Arthur Henderson, was caught in the middle. Henderson was a man under pressure. Regional directives constantly emphasized hitting ambitious sales targets for new, high-margin vehicles. Mark Jenkins, despite his abrasive personality, which Henderson was vaguely aware of, though perhaps not its full extent, consistently delivered strong numbers, particularly with the expensive models. This performance provided Mark a certain amount of insulation. Henderson might occasionally preach the gospel of customer service during sales meetings, but the underlying message often felt like results matter most. He might not explicitly endorse Mark's judgmental tactics, but he hadn't actively curbed them either, creating an environment where such behavior could fester, overshadowed by the bottom line. Ben's quieter, more relationship-focused approach, while pleasant, didn't yet translate into the kind of numbers that earned Henderson's full attention or praise. Ben often felt discouraged, wondering if his polite persistence was naive in this cutthroat world. He admired the engineering of the cars, but disliked the sometimes predatory atmosphere, clinging to the hope that good service still mattered. His respectful interaction with the elderly couple stood in stark contrast to Mark's impending collision course with the Van Cess, highlighting the diverging paths within the dealership's culture. The drive to Prestige Motors the next morning was quiet, but charged with unspoken emotion. Julian drove the gleaming pearl white Rolls-Royce Phantom himself, its powerful engine a low hum beneath them. Clara sat beside him, hands clasped loosely in her lap, watching the familiar Austin scenery glide by. She appreciated Julian's fierce protectiveness, but the prospect of a confrontation, the sheer theatricality of arriving in this car, made her uneasy. "Julian," she began softly, "are you sure about this? It feels excessive." He was just one rude man. Julian reached over and covered her hand with his. "Clara, it wasn't just about him being rude. It was about why he was rude. He judged you. He dismissed you based on nothing but his own prejudice. That's not okay. It's not okay for you. It's not okay for anyone." He paused, navigating a turn smoothly. Remember when we were starting out? When I was coding in the garage and you were teaching during the day and waitressing at night? Remember how people sometimes look down on us? How we scrape by? Clara nodded, a faint smile touching her lips at the memory. We had nothing but each other and your crazy ideas. Exactly, Julian said, his voice softening. And you believed in those ideas. You treated me with respect when the world didn't. Your belief, your steady kindness, that's the foundation everything else was built on. They keep me grounded. But that doesn't mean you should ever be treated as less than. I need to do this, not just for you, but with you, to show them who you are. Clara squeezed his hand, understanding dawning in her eyes. It wasn't about the money or the car. It was about affirming her value, their shared history, and the principles they both held dear. His gesture, while grand, stemmed from a deep well of love and respect forged over 25 years. She thought about their life, the early struggles, the unexpected explosion of success, the conscious choice they'd made to keep their core values intact despite the immense changes. Julian had shielded her from the worst excesses of wealth, respecting her need for normalcy. Now, he was shielding her from the casual cruelty of the world in the only way he knew how, decisively and powerfully. Her unease began to fade, replaced by a quiet resolve. She trusted Julian, not just his business acumen, but his heart. As the imposing gates of Prestige Motors came into view, she straightened her shoulders, ready to stand beside him, not as a billionaire's wife seeking revenge, but as Clara Vance, a woman deserving of respect. Their shared glance held decades of understanding, a silent affirmation of their enduring partnership. The Rolls-Royce Phantom glided silently through the entrance of Prestige Motors, its imposing presence instantly commanding attention. The usual morning activity in the lot, shuffling cars, early customers' brows paused. Heads turned. Employees inside the showroom gravitated towards the large windows, murmuring, as Julian, dressed in a perfectly tailored dark suit, stepped out from the driver's side. The effect was magnetic. He moved with an understated authority that spoke louder than any overt display. He then walked around to the passenger side, opening the door for Clara. When she emerged, looking serene and elegant in her cashmere set, a different kind of ripple went through the onlookers. Mark Jenkins, who had been hovering near the entrance hoping for exactly this kind of high-value arrival, practically sprinted across the asphalt, his salesman's smile firmly in place, hand extended. Welcome to Prestige Motors. Mark Jenkins, Senior Sales Consultant. What a magnificent vehicle. Are you perhaps looking to trade up or adding to the collection? He didn't recognize Clara at all, his focus entirely on Julian and the $500,000 car he'd arrived in. Julian completely ignored Mark's outstretched hand and effusive greeting. His gaze was cool, steady. He offered Clara his arm, and together, they walked past the stunned salesman as if he were invisible, heading directly into the main showroom. Mark faltered, his smile flickering, before quickly recovering and scurrying after them. Inside, the atmosphere was hushed. Other salespeople subtly moved aside. The dealership manager, Arthur Henderson, alerted by the commotion and the sight of the Phantom, was already hurrying out from his office, adjusting his tie. Julian and Clara paused near the dealership's flagship display, another Rolls-Royce, perhaps a sleek black Ghost, positioned under spotlights. Mark caught up, breathless. An excellent choice, sir. The Ghost represents the pinnacle of modern luxury. Allow me to demonstrate some of its bespoke features. Julian finally turned, not just to Mark, but seemingly addressing the entire showroom, his voice quiet yet carrying clearly in the suddenly silent space. He gestured dismissively towards Mark, without looking directly at him yet. "This man," Julian stated, his tone level but laced with ice, "informed my wife yesterday that she didn't belong here, that she couldn't afford so much as a mirror, that she was wasting his valuable time." He then fixed his gaze directly on Mark Jenkins. She was trying to look at a certified pre-owned Lexus. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. He gently turned Clara slightly towards the salesman. "Do you recognize her now, Mr. Jenkins?" Mark stared. The elegant woman holding the arm of this clearly powerful man, the face finally registered. The casual clothes from yesterday were gone, replaced by quiet quality, but the eyes, now looking at him with calm scrutiny, were the same. The color drained from Mark's face. His jaw worked, but no sound emerged. The arrogant smirk vanished, replaced by dawning horror and disbelief. He stammered, looking wildly between Clara and Julian. The carefully constructed facade of the slick salesman shattered, revealing pure panic underneath. The silence in the showroom stretched, thick with tension. Every eye was on Mark Jenkins, whose face had gone from pale to a sickly gray. He opened his mouth again, a desperate plea forming. "Sir, Madam Vance, I am so terribly sorry. I didn't realize it was a misunderstanding, please." Julian cut him off, not with a raised voice, but with a quiet finality that was far more chilling. "Realization should not be dependent on the make of car one arrives in, Mr. Jenkins. Basic courtesy shouldn't require a background check." He turned his attention to the dealership manager, Arthur Henderson, who had reached them, looking deeply concerned. "Mr. Henderson, I presume? I am Julian Vance, CEO of Apex Innovations. This is my wife, Clara." Recognition flared in Henderson's eyes, quickly followed by apprehension. Apex was a titan in Austin, and Julian Vance was one of the most influential figures in the state, if not the country. "Mr. Vance, Mrs. Vance," Henderson said, his voice strained. "A pleasure to have you here. Is there a problem?" "There is," Julian stated calmly. "Yesterday, your employee, Mr. Jenkins, subjected my wife to offensive and discriminatory treatment when she came here, alone, simply looking for a reliable vehicle. He judged her based on her appearance and treated her with utter contempt. He recounted the essence of the incident, the sneering remarks, the dismissal, the implication she couldn't afford anything. This," Julian continued, his gaze sweeping the showroom, "is not merely about one employee's bad behavior. It suggests a potential issue within your dealership's culture. A culture where potential customers are prejudged and insulted." He gestured toward the Rolls-Royce Ghost on display. "We came today prepared to purchase this vehicle. Cash." Henderson's eyes widened slightly. That was a significant sale, easily clearing 7 figures with options. "However," Julian added smoothly, "our purchase is contingent." Mark Jenkins, seeing his career vaporizing before his eyes, made one last desperate appeal, turning towards Clara. "Mrs. Vance, please. I made a terrible mistake. I was having a bad day. I have a mortgage. Kids, please tell your husband." Clara met his desperate gaze. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft but carried immense weight. "What you did was wrong, Mark," she said, her tone conveying disappointment rather than anger. "It was hurtful. Everyone, absolutely everyone, deserves to be treated with respect. It doesn't matter what they're wearing, what car they drive, or what you assume about their bank account. Kindness costs nothing." She didn't explicitly forgive him, nor did she demand further retribution. Her words were a simple statement of principle. She looked briefly at Henderson. Judgment like that diminishes everyone involved. Julian stepped forward again, refocusing on the manager. "My condition, Mr. Henderson, is simple. We will complete the purchase of the Rolls-Royce Ghost, right now. But Mr. Jenkins will have no part in the transaction, nor will he be employed by Prestige Motors by the close of business today. His behavior is unacceptable and, frankly, a liability to your brand's reputation. I require your assurance on this matter before we proceed. Henderson was trapped. On one hand, a massive, prestigious sale. On the other, the potential fallout from publicly backing a problematic employee against Julian Vance. The choice was clear, if unpleasant. Mr. Vance, Henderson said, wiping a bead of sweat from his temple. Please accept our sincerest apologies for the treatment Mrs. Vance received. It is completely unacceptable and not reflective of our standards. Consider it done. Mr. Jenkins's behavior will be addressed immediately and permanently. He gestured subtly to a security guard nearby, who approached Mark Jenkins. Mark, Henderson said stiffly, come with me. Defeated, shoulders slumped, Mark allowed himself to be led away towards the back offices, not looking back. The immediate conflict was resolved, swiftly and decisively. With Mark Jenkins removed from the equation, the atmosphere in the showroom shifted, though an undercurrent of tension remained. Henderson, eager to salvage the situation and secure the high-value sale, became almost overly solicitous. Mr. Vance, Mrs. Vance, please allow me to handle the paperwork personally. Or perhaps Benjamin, he said, spotting the young trainee, Ben Carter, hovering nervously nearby. Ben, come here. Julian, who had noticed Ben's earlier respectful demeanor during the initial chaos the young man hadn't gawked, but it seemed genuinely concerned, nodded slightly. Mr. Carter seems capable, Julian remarked quietly to Henderson, loud enough for Ben to hear. Promote competence and courtesy, Henderson. It pays better dividends in the long run. Ben, startled but grateful for the unexpected endorsement, stepped forward, assisting Henderson with the necessary documentation for the Rolls-Royce purchase. The transaction was handled with surprising speed, Julian paying via an instant wire transfer from his phone. During the process, Clara quietly pointed out the silver CPO Lexus ES she had initially been interested in. Almost as an afterthought, Julian instructed Henderson to add it to the purchase. My wife needs a reliable car, he stated simply. As the final details were arranged for the delivery of the Rolls-Royce, Julian opted to have it sent to their home later. Clara felt a complex mix of emotions. The validation was undeniably satisfying, yet the exercise of such overwhelming power felt foreign. She knew Julian's actions came from love, but the public dismissal of Mark, necessary as it might have seemed, left a residue of discomfort. This wasn't just about buying a car or teaching one man a lesson anymore. Standing there, amidst the luxury she usually shunned, Clara felt a subtle shift within herself. Perhaps her quiet life didn't mean she had to passively accept injustice. On the drive home, in the newly acquired Lexus, leaving Julian's other car for his security detail to handle, Julian revealed the idea that had been forming in his mind since the previous evening. I want to start a foundation, Clara, he said. Something in your name. The Clara Vance Initiative. Maybe focused on helping people, particularly women, overcome barriers created by prejudice and lack of opportunity. People judged unfairly, like you were. He wanted her insight, her guidance, her name attached to it. This was the true turning point, transforming a negative, humiliating experience into a positive force for change. In the days and weeks following the incident at Prestige Motors, both Clara and Julian found themselves reflecting on the events and their implications. Clara initially struggled with the memory, the rawness of the humiliation, the discomfort of the confrontation, the sheer power Julian had wielded. She drove her new Lexus ES, a practical and comfortable car she genuinely liked, but the pearl white Phantom delivered to their home felt like an alien presence in their garage, a symbol of a world she didn't quite belong to. However, as she discussed the proposed foundation with Julian, her perspective began to evolve. The idea of channeling the ugliness of that encounter into something constructive resonated deeply with her innate sense of purpose. She realized her quiet existence didn't equate to powerlessness. While she would never seek out confrontation, she recognized the necessity of standing up against disrespect, not just for herself, but for others who might not have a Julian Vance to intervene. Engaging with the concept of the foundation gave her a new sense of agency. She began outlining its philosophy, focusing on tangible support and mentorship, emphasizing respect and dignity alongside financial aid. It became a way to reclaim the narrative, transforming her personal hurt into a broader mission. Julian, too, underwent a period of reflection. While satisfied with the outcome at the dealership, the swift removal of Mark Jenkins and the promotion of Ben Carter, which he'd confirmed happened, he contemplated the nature of his own power. Clara's quiet strength and unwavering moral compass had always been his anchor. The incident served as a stark reminder of how easily wealth and influence could be misused, even with good intentions. He saw the Rolls-Royce not just as a tool for justice, but as a symbol that required careful handling. He acknowledged that while his decisive action was necessary to protect her, her approach focusing on healing and positive change through the foundation represented a higher form of strength. They spoke about Mark Jenkins once more. Clara expressed a quiet hope that he would learn empathy from the experience, wherever he landed next. Julian remained less forgiving, but respected Clara's capacity for grace, acknowledging that his own impulse was protection and correction, while hers leaned towards restoration and understanding. The event hadn't fundamentally changed who they were, but it had subtly deepened their understanding of each other and their place in the world, prompting growth beyond the immediate conflict. 6 months later, the Clara Vance Initiative was formally launched, operating out of a modest office space in downtown Austin. Clara, actively involved as chairperson, oversaw the first round of grants providing transportation stipends and professional development support to women entering the workforce or changing careers after facing workplace discrimination. She found immense satisfaction in meeting the beneficiaries, hearing their stories, and seeing the tangible impact the initiative was making. She drove her reliable Lexus to meetings, the Rolls-Royce used sparingly for official foundation events, a tool rather than a statement. At Prestige Motors, under Henderson's now more watchful eye, and with Ben Carter excelling in a management training program, a renewed focus on customer service training was subtly changing the showroom floor dynamics. The ripple effect of that single, unpleasant encounter had spread outwards in unexpected ways. One cool evening, Clara and Julian sat together on their porch, overlooking the rolling hills, the scent of jasmine in the air. Julian watched his wife, her expression content, as she reviewed foundation proposals. "You took something ugly and made it beautiful, Clara," he said softly. She looked up, smiling. "We did, Julian. It's just about remembering what truly matters. Kindness doesn't have a price tag, and respect shouldn't depend on the clothes someone wears." The ultimate luxury, they both understood, wasn't the Phantom parked in the garage, but the integrity they upheld, the love they shared, and the fundamental respect they endeavored to show and demand for everyone. True value wasn't measured